Hey everyone, I have wonderful news. Linda Madden has allowed me to make an audio version of her book 10,000 Whispers. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. This is one of my favorite books all times. You should see how it looks. And I trust and wish and hope and all the good things that you will get exactly out of this book what you need, and I'm sure you will. So, 10,000 Whispers, a guide to conscious creation. This book is dedicated to the pioneers of consciousness, the people who, by simply changing their minds about the structure of our reality, will bring unprecedented change into the world. Linda Madden. You seek the holy grail of consciousness when there are really 10,000 whispers of reality. The committee. As in your terms, the caveman ventured out into the daylight of the earth, so there is a time for man to venture out into a greater knowledge of his subjective reality, to explore the dimensions of selfhood, and go beyond the small areas of himself in which he has thus far found shelter. Seth, The Unknown Reality, Volume 1, Session 684. Introduction. The radio talk show host inhaled quickly and let the next zinger fly. How can you possibly believe, Linda, that a ring you say you lost could rematerialize? Big quote marks drawn by impatient fingers slashed the air. 30 miles from the scene of the loss? I guess I hallucinated the experience, Jer. Well, Jerry, as we come to understand the concept of simultaneous time and the creative abilities of consciousness, and how can you believe you created $1 million through what you call conscious creation? I don't know. Guess you had to be there. Well, Jerry, as we come to understand the concept of simultaneous time and the creative abilities of consciousness, hold on a minute, honey. You honestly canceled your health insurance because you know you'll never need it? Now, isn't that stretching things a bit? Well, sweetie, it depends on your perspective. No, Jerry, not at all. It gets down to consciousness and time and... I watched in awe as Jerry turned into the avenger of the common, the voice of the conventional, the arbiter of the unthinking. With cape flying, he soared across the heavens, aglow with the flush of victory. He had slain the interloper and secured the mediocre for yet another generation. He felt damn good. But the universe works in mysterious ways, at least in dreams. Jerry had flown too close to the heat of new thought, and it was his demise. His cape disintegrated and his stubby body melted. He limped and dripped through the sky, a mere stunted mortal in the end. I awoke chuckling. I felt damn good. Since the publication of my first book, Beyond the Winning Streak, Using Conscious Creation to Consistently Win at Life, I've been on numerous radio and television shows, and I only met Jerry in my dreams. Most hosts are gracious and curious, if not completely accepting of the idea that we literally create our lives based on our thoughts, attitudes, and beliefs. Their audiences are the same. I noticed that if I have time to explain the basic structure of our reality in concrete terms, they click in, turn on, light up more quickly. But if I ride the surface too long, their natural cynicism overcomes good manners. And why not? I understand their position. I've been there myself. As a former 20-year computer industry veteran, I'm well acquainted with their attitude. It was mine for years. There is a phrase from the song I Am Woman that goes, "And I know too much to go back and pretend." As I explained in Beyond the Winning Streak, I did materialize a ring lost many miles from where it reappeared. I did create $1 million after choosing wealth as my road to freedom. And I did cancel my health insurance because I know I'll never need it. And I've accomplished dozens of other things through conscious creation also. It doesn't take a 2x4 to get my attention. Something of significance is going on here. So why would I choose to go back and pretend? I'd have to forget that there is a structure to this reality that can be used to our advantage, helping us to bring significant change into our lives. I'd have to try not to remember that we can use this structure to fulfill our desires and wishes, because that's why it's in place. And I'd have to deny its logic, not logic honed by our present limited ideas of what is and is not possible, but one that is far greater in scope, much grander in design, larger than life as we know it. This logic was initiated at the birth of the universe, an integral part of the vastness called all that is. However, it's a logic that escapes notice because it's obvious only when we become aware of it. By going back and pretending, I'd have to play victim once more to life's whims and join the billions of people who have died believing in the powerlessness of the individual. Through the centuries, they've participated in the dramas of wars, ghettos, famines, crime, and commonly accepted illnesses. They've hurried through the after-dark streets of New York, London, Bogota, and our town, metaphorically genuflecting to their favorite icon of safety as their fear rose with the moon. In self-defense, they've built bigger weapons, developed more medicines, and prayed to the current god of protection. And in spite of their safeguards, the majority of those who have inhabited the face of the earth have died from disease or slaughter. So goes our world through the millennia. And so it will continue until we change our ideas about what does and does not constitute reality, and until we understand our participation in events. If we continue to choose not to believe we have the slightest impact on the creation of our lives, we can't possibly break the cycle. We will follow in the footsteps of our forefathers, looking to an outside source to bail us out of our latest trouble, but instead causing repeated tragedy. And how many more can we sustain? A Blue, Blue Easter. Along with dozens of other moviegoers on Easter Day in 1994, I cried out at the horror of the Holocaust as portrayed in Steven Spielberg's film, Schindler's List. My unfinished popcorn sat forgotten in my lap as I wiped at tears staining my cheek. I sat mesmerized by scene after scene of indignity, indecency, terror, and death. My heart ached with sadness at the gross violations of human against human, acts perpetrated in the name of superiority. My nerves froze with the hopelessness, the helplessness emanating from the white screen. But even with great emotion roiling through my mind, I suspected my tears were of a different weather than those of my companions in that high-tech auditorium. I suspected they still believed in evil, in victimization, in a God outside themselves. I suspected most of the Easter Day moviegoers still believed in random acts of violence, in vulnerability, in unfortunate circumstances and bad luck. But of course they did. If they agreed with most of the world, and that along with the sheer horror of the Holocaust is what caused my tears. In the mid-80s, I'd become intimately familiar with the most freeing, exciting news ever. News that has been around since the beginning of time, but buried under but buried under the debris of civilization-imposed ignorance for long, long centuries. It casts individuals and their participation in events in a very different light, one that suggests power, purpose, and meaning. And in that movie theater, I'd shed tears for the human race, wondering just how much longer it was going to take for us to break the bonds of limiting past beliefs and move into our heritage. The right to consciously develop life on Earth in whatever ways we see fit and proper by understanding and using our inherent capabilities. So where did we go wrong? In the only place we can ever get off track, our belief systems. We have chosen to believe that we're problem children from the outset. In conflict with a parent God, life happens by chance in a mechanistic universe. A dark force is at play in our world, and only God can secure our peace, and only science can heal our hurting bodies. On the surface of physical reality, these assumptions stand tall, cloaked in apparent validity. We study the world at large and evil incarnate. Why else would unspeakable horrors continue? We look at an individual's inability to make the pain disappear. Surely such transformations are only in the power of the Godhead or science. We gasp at human acts of nastiness toward all living things. Isn't man degenerate by nature? Angels gone awry? Given these assumptions and our belief in them, the road to global happiness seems remote indeed. Fairy tale illusion of the highest order. But there is another way to view the world and our participation in it that maps a road toward peace and value fulfillment that is indeed attainable. This view affords we the people the status of whole, complete beings now and evermore, here on earth, for quite a different learning objective than present-day theologies and science suggest. It drops the power of creation into the lap of each individual who has ever been, or ever will be, born into physical life, and it suggests that, once we learn what we're dealing with, we'll finally understand the genesis of events. And through this understanding, we will bring great change into our worlds. The gift of the gods. I left mainstream America in thought, if not in deed, in 1984. Firmly ensconced in the computer industry for almost 15 years at that point and riding a wave of executive success. I hardly seemed a candidate for a stunning alteration in belief systems, but there I was, along with my partner and love, Stan, and thousands of others, questioning the very foundation of world assumptions. My own personal upheaval of beliefs started when I read a book called Seth Speaks by the brilliant author Jane Roberts. The next book by Jane and Seth that I read, The Nature of Personal Reality, clinched it. I would never see our world of our reality through the blinders of the past again. But who or what is Seth anyway? According to his own definition, he's an energy essence personality, no longer focused in physical reality. You might think of him as an intelligence residing outside time and space. He made himself known to acclaimed writer Jane Roberts and her artist/writer husband Robert Butts in 1963, while they were experimenting with a Ouija board for a book project of Jane's. Neither had had previous interest in or experience with the metaphysical and were quite unprepared for Seth's breakthrough introduction of himself. But given time and the quality of what they were getting on the board, Rob and Jane loosened their concern, and Jane then allowed Seth to speak through her voice instead of the cumbersome Ouija board. With Rob transcribing Seth's words, they established a three-way working relationship that led to almost 1,800 sessions held over 20 plus years and 4,000 hours until Jane's death in 1984. Some of the sessions were specifically dictated by Seth as book material and now comprise 9 published books and 1 yet to be printed manuscript. Other sessions were incorporated whole, in piece, or in theory into 14 published books and 1 unpublished manuscript written by Jane, works not orchestrated by Seth. Then there are more than 16 other manuscripts waiting to be compiled from Seth's discussions recorded during ESP classes Jane held for many years, and from sessions originally deleted from transcribed material. Note, that was the status of Seth and Jane's work in 1995 when this book was first released. By 2010, most of the material had been published. The Seth material challenges the very fabric of accepted global thought from which most theories and conclusions are presently drawn, especially the law of cause and effect. According to Seth, we are given the gift of gods, the gift of creativity. He says there is only one rule of physical existence, and that is the fact that we literally create our individual realities through our thoughts, attitudes, and beliefs. Events don't happen to us. We cause them by what we expect to see in our world and our lives. Every event we encounter and participate in is a physical reflection of what we think and feel. The implications of this statement are startling. For if we have created the reality of our individual and global lives, then surely we can change what we don't like. Seth didn't present the world with the great cosmic Bible. He whispered universal truths into our ears. If a person is looking for the 10 Commandments of Metaphysics, he or she will not find them here. The material's non-dogmatic, non-superficial stance, coupled with information that astounds the intellect at times, has captured many readers' attention, approximately 7 million of them in fact. Yale University selected Jane and Rob's work for their archives, a tribute to its quality and importance. Interestingly, it's the only metaphysical body of work housed in the archives and one of the most visited, according to a Yale spokesperson. But the bottom line is, does it work? Can we really change our lives by changing our thoughts? Do we literally have the power of creation at our fingertips? Run those questions by any number of Seth readers and be prepared for some evocative answers. In my case, as I wrote in my first book, by using conscious creation, I moved myself out of a product marketing manager's job with Apple into a vice presidency with another computer industry firm, and then went on to make a lot of money, all because of what Seth says is possible if we but know how to do it. 10,000 Whispers is not about the Seth material per se, although some basic concepts will definitely be covered. It's about each of us, you and me. It's about our heritage, our abilities, our future. It's about our power, our rights, our value fulfillment. It's about having what we want, becoming whom we choose. And it's about our civilization and how we can contribute to its great purpose and intent through new understandings.